All right, so today we're going to dive into a pretty small book that has had a massive, massive impact. It's Rainer Maria Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. Now, these are just 10 letters, written way back between 1903 and 1908. But what's incredible is how they speak so directly to us today, to our anxieties about being creative, finding our purpose, and, just figuring out how to live a real, authentic life.
So the whole thing kicked off with this one simple, really vulnerable question. A young student, Franz Kappus, sends his poems to the great poet Rilke, and he basically just asks, hey, is my work any good? And I mean, if you've ever made anything, whether it's art or code or even just a plan, you know that question. It's the one we ask ourselves all the time, right?
But here's where it gets really interesting. Rilke did something totally unexpected. He didn't even critique the poems, not at all. He just kind of sidestepped the whole is it good question and gave him something way more valuable. A guide not just for being an artist, but for being a human being. And these letters, well, they've become this incredible blueprint for how to live.
Okay, so Rilke's wisdom really breaks down into a couple of key areas. Let's start with the first big one, his advice for the creator, for the artist in all of us.
Rilke's first move is just pow. It's a complete redirection. He tells this young poet, you are looking outside yourself, and that is precisely what you should not do now. I mean, think about that for a second. In our world of likes and shares and validation, he's saying, stop. Don't do that. The answers you're looking for, they're not out there. So instead of looking out, he tells him to turn inwards, and he gives him the only question that he thinks really matters. Must I write? Forget about whether your stuff is good. The real test is it necessary? Do you have to do it? He even says, ask yourself in the dead of night, if I were forbidden to write, would I die? That's the real test. And this just completely redefines what makes art good. For Rilke, it has absolutely nothing to do with applause or critics or getting 5 stars. A work of art is good for one reason and one reason only, because it had to be made. It was born out of this deep, personal, undeniable need. That's it. So where does the material for this kind of art come from? Well, not from some big, grand, universal themes. Nope. Rilke's advice is to look at your own life, your daily routine, your memories, the things right in front of you. He even says, look, if your daily life seems poor or boring, don't blame life. Blame yourself for not being enough of a poet to see how rich it really is. The creator has to be a world for themselves. This is exactly why he says you have to ignore the critics. He says that works of art come from this place of infinite solitude, and that criticism can't even touch them. The only thing that can truly understand a work of art is love. In our age of endless hot takes and online comments, his advice is basically to find the very few people who can approach what you do with love, not judgment.
And this is where it all gets so much bigger. Rilke shows us that these same exact principles, looking inward, finding what's necessary, embracing your own world, they aren't just for making art. They are the keys to living your life.
Sound familiar? It's the same idea. Just like the artist has to look inward, so does every single one of us. Rilke warns that looking to the outside world for the answers to our deepest questions is a surefire way to feel anxious and lost. The real answers we're searching for, he says, are already inside us, just waiting for us to get quiet enough to hear them.
So what do we do with all the big, scary, unanswered questions in life? Well, Rilke's advice is incredible. He tells us not to scramble for answers. Instead, he says, be patient. And then he says this, try to love the questions themselves. Just live inside the not knowing. If you can do that, he promises, then one day, slowly, without even realizing it, you will live your way right into the answer. He also tells us to embrace being alone. He says, love your solitude and bear the pain it causes you. We live in a world that's kind of terrified of solitude, that sees loneliness as a problem. Rilke completely flips that. He sees it as our natural state, the one place where we can finally meet ourselves and hear what we actually think. So all this really presents us with a choice, kind of like 2 paths we can take. There's the easy path, the one laid out by convention and what everyone else is doing, and then there's the difficult path of real personal growth. Rilke's advice? It's tough, but it's simple. Always, always choose what is difficult. Why? Because that's where growth is. That struggle, he says, is a certainty that will never, ever leave you. And this even applies to our most difficult emotions. Rilke gives this amazing advice to welcome your sadness. Don't run from it. Don't try to push it away.
He wants us to see it not as something being wrong with us, but as this deep, quiet moment when something new and unknown is entering our life. For him, sadness is just the silence right before a transformation. So when you pull all of this together, the inward focus, the necessity, loving the questions, choosing the difficult path, it all combines into one beautiful central idea for Rilke, the art of living. In his ultimate piece of wisdom, well, it might be the simplest, but it's also probably the hardest thing to actually do. He writes, "Let life happen to you. Believe me, life is in the right, always." It's really just a call to trust the process, to stop trying to control every little thing, to stop fighting the hard parts, and to just have a little faith that life, in the end, knows what it's doing. And so here we are, over a century later, and Rilke's wisdom leaves us without one profound and, kinda difficult question. In a world that is always demanding quick answers and outside approval, are we brave enough to look inside ourselves? Are we willing to trust the process and, really let life happen?